Good morning. This is Jason Dean from Film Fanatic. Hope everyone's doing good. So, yeah, it's another surprise, surprise, pretty overcast day. The sun came out briefly this morning. It's about 10:34. So, yeah, it is what it is, but pretty excited about this weekend. A couple of quantum shows coming up on Friday. We have a big show at Sophia, which is a super cool bar right in Belfast. It's about 7 minutes from my house, which is kind of nice having a gig or gigs that are really close. I used to have to drive. The last few years, I noticed it's along with lots of other changes, but I used to have to drive a lot for gigs, and for a while I was playing out of state and going on little road trips and did some mini tours and things like that. We went to we've been to New York City a bunch of times, and then we played in Montreal, Canada, and we've played in Vermont and Connecticut and Massachusetts, New Hampshire. So we've played like throughout New England, and then we played in Canada, and we used to play in New York quite a bit with Quantum, and those kinds of things were usually always happening, or they all happened kind of about 5 or 6 years ago. We were going on the road playing local gigs, but then traveling. We haven't done that in a long time. Most of our gigs have been local, and I would like, at some point there's a lot of great venues out there. So there's, I think other opportunities to kind of branch out into other markets and things like that. So it's something that I want to eventually get back to. It's just a matter of like the logistics and scheduling and all those fun things that it entails. But at some point, it will happen. But like I said, the last few years, everything has been pretty local. Which on one hand is good because I think the money has been better financially for playing gigs. It's very hard. I find certain venues that we've played at have been good, but it's hard to make money on the road. I find when I have a little bit of touring experience, more on the smaller scale, and I've done some of those kinds of things with other bands or other projects. But it's been a long time. But generally, I find, at least in my experience, it's pretty hard to make money off of when you're on the road because of expenses and all those things. Sometimes you can. We've made pretty good money, mostly when we've played in Canada, of all places. Canada has been just an amazing place. We've played in Montreal a couple times. So, and generally it comes back to what I hear, even what major bands talk about. It all comes down to like merchandise and selling your product. If you have merchandise, that's where a lot of the sales come in. Touring does help, obviously, but it's a struggle, I think, even for big bands. But it's a huge market still. That I don't think will go away. I think bands are doing it, and it's coming back. It seems like it's come back full bore now, which is really nice. So, but this Friday we will be at Sophia in Belfast, and we're going to be starting at about 7:30, and we'll be doing like a 2.5 hour set or so. Very excited about playing there. I've never played a gig there. I actually have a couple other gigs there coming up with a couple other bands, and so but this will be the first time for our electronic band to be there. So very pumped. And so if you're around, come on by. Super cool bar, tiny little place, but it's got a really cool atmosphere. And then on Saturday we're going to be doing a radio show on my friend Spencer Roulard's show at 2 o'clock, and we're going to be doing like a live set, probably about an hour and a half or so. So stay tuned for that. That will be a lot of fun. We're going to try to get the show recorded this time. We had some problems last time. We did it. We did a show on his radio station a few months ago, and it was good. It was fun, but we had some problems. We weren't able to record the show, so that's kind of what we're going to try to shoot for this weekend. So yeah, some events coming up. So pretty excited about those. And in the next couple weeks, we got some other things happening, so I'll be doing some more doing promotion for those shows as well. So today's show is about the stack of movies that I bought. My last big purchase at Goodwill in Rockland. Haven't been able to make it to Bull Moose in a while. I'm starting to chomp at the bit. Very much looking forward to going there and getting some sleazy movies. Lately, I've been on this kick of watching a lot of big action movies and big budget movies. I love that shit too, but I'm starting to lose a little bit of focus out of that. I've been just because like Goodwill and Rockland, where I buy lots of movies, and I've gotten a ton of movies there the last month or two. They have a lot of Marvel movies, a lot of like bigger action, more commercial movies, but a really great Blu-ray selection. I try to primarily only buy Blu-rays. I still buy some DVDs here and there. I don't buy VHS anymore VHS, but primarily it's all Blu-ray. That's the focus, and especially when I go to Bull Moose, that's usually what I really focus on. And I try to always seek out like the sleaziest, most low-budget movies I can find. And again, that's my passion, and looking forward to getting back into buying some of those movies again. And I'm starting to feel the burn. I haven't watched them in a little bit, just because I've been trying to get through these stacks of movies that I've been buying at Goodwill. So one of the movies that I bought on my last trip to Goodwill was Skyfall, James Bond. It's the second to last movie that came out. I've seen all of the James Bond movies in the theater. I've always had a tradition of seeing most of them in the theater. I did not get to see the last one. That was like the only one. I don't think. I think it's the only one I've never seen in the theater. I've always had this tradition of seeing them. Way back in the day, I had a friend in Belfast who I've lost touch with, but we used to always go see. He was a big James Bond fan, and we used to go see them all the time. The ones with Pierce Bronson and before that. I've always been a huge James Bond fan. So, in the order of reviewing this movie, I have Skyfall, and I have Quantum of Solace, and I have Casino Royale. I don't have the new one, the last one, the finale that came out, which is pretty spectacular. I want to get that at some point on Blu-ray, and eventually I'll probably pick it up. But I did like Skyfall a lot. I've only seen it once, so I'm very much looking forward to watching it again. But what I try to do, or what I've been doing, I did it with the Star Wars movies, because I picked up a couple of Star Wars films in my last trip. I decided to watch my collection of those movies that I have in the franchise in succession, to see how it plays out. If I still like the movies, if I'm still excited, if I don't like the movies, if they just have a different impact on me. So I decided to do that with the James Bond movies. And I have to say, and I've said it before, but I'm a huge fan of the old school James Bond films, without a doubt. I love everything about those earlier films. There's not really too many films I don't really like in the whole entire franchise, and it's a massive franchise. I think some of the ones where it gets a little bit weak are the ones with Pierce Bronson, but they're still pretty good. I haven't seen those in years. It would be cool to buy those or to see them again. And it would be cool to get all of the James Bond films at some point, but that's going to be a ways away. But I have to say, Daniel Craig is hands down my favorite James Bond ever. I think, and so what I decided to do was watch Casino Royale first, and that is here. And I've had this. I bought this last year on Blu-ray, and I had never watched it since. And I've seen this movie a ton of times. And so for the show, I decided to go ahead and watch the movies that I own in succession. And I watched Casino Royale last night again, and I've seen this a bunch of times, but I've never seen it on Blu-ray, which is so weird. I saw it in a theater, I've seen it on DVD a bunch of times, I've seen it on TV a bunch of times, and I watched this again on Blu-ray, and it is simply amazing. I think that this film, hands down, is the best James Bond movie ever. I think it's easily the best one. It's got everything. It's got a grittier edge to it. It's a little bit darker. It's got a little bit more of a feeling of where it's kind of set a little bit more in reality. It's still got the James Bond, kind of heightened reality thing, but it feels a little grittier. It feels like it's a little bit more based in reality, so it has a little bit more like kind of realism to it. And that's probably for me the biggest attraction. So, and from a technical standpoint, this Blu-ray is pretty jaw-dropping. And again, I just think all around, and it came out in 2006, which is pretty unbelievable how old this film actually is. Daniel Craig, of course, the star, the one and only evergreen. The cast in this, I just think, is spectacular. Mads Mikkelsen, who is just so amazing. He's always been one of my favorite actors. Um, for so long. My favorite film with Mads Mikkelsen is Valhalla Rising, which is this Viking epic movie, and it's a Viking epic, and it is just an acid trip of a movie. Incredible. Jeffrey Wright is also in this, and he's really great. He's not in it very long, but he's another great character actor. He was so great as Commissioner Gordon in the Batman of Robert Patterson. Judy Dench, of course. But I just think this movie delivers in every way possible. It's got some of the gadgets. Like there were some people who thought that this movie was a little bit too grounded in reality. They wanted to see the over the top, the technology and the heightened reality aspects to the film. That a lot of the older films have. But I think there's still a lot of cool tech. But again, it's more grounded in reality. I think the action sequences in this film, especially the opening scene, is just uh, unbelievable. The the stunt choreography, the fight choreography, is just incredible. I think this movie has a lot of heart and soul. I think we really get to see a lot of different sides to the James Bond character. He really goes through a lot of personal changes in this movie, and I just think it's really interesting. I think they took some liberties and some chances, the filmmakers. Um, it was directed by Martin Campbell. It's hard to believe that this came out in 2006. And I'm very much looking forward to watching Skyfall. Skyfall will be next. And then that will conclude all of my new purchases that I bought recently. But I decided to watch these in succession, and again, this movie is just such a fucking masterpiece. It's so epic. It's beautifully shot. It's got James Bond. The James Bond movies are known for being shot in these really beautiful, exotic locations. This completely delivers that. The action is just jaw dropping, and it is a darker film, especially the ending. It does not end on a really happy note. It's very, uh, again, I think it was kind of a risk that they took, the filmmakers, because it has a very dark ending, and I think it's great. I think it's great that they were willing to go to a place of where, you know, it's not it's not rosy, and it's not going to be a peachy, friendly ending. And I just think that that's you know wonderful. And again, I think it goes back to having the film a little bit more grounded in reality, which I think really, really works and is just really awesome. So, and again, the quality of Casino Royale on Blu-ray is amazing. It's total immersion. The sound is just killer, and the way this movie is mixed with the audio and the music is just incredible. I have a good surround sound system. I just recently bought a new system. I'm gonna be getting it uh, set up pretty soon, just because mainly my DVD player, Blu-ray player that I have is kind of, I use it all the time, but it's not really uh, too reliable these days. A lot of DVDs that I have won't play on it now. I have tons of DVDs, and I still buy them, but like, again, I mostly buy Blu-rays. Even for Blu-rays, it gets a little bit persnickety. So I decided to, you know, take the leap and buy a new player and see how it is. But watching this, I have a nice sound system. I have a full surround sound system, 5 speakers and a subwoofer, and this movie is one of the movies to watch on an incredible sound system. Like it's just so badass. Like it's total immersion. I can't say enough about this movie, and ever since I saw this movie, I felt that this was the best James Bond movie. And I've always been a huge Daniel Craig fan. He's just amazing. He's got so much versatility. Knives. He can do a film like Knives Out, which is such a great film, and he plays such a different kind of a role. But then he can, and then the first movie I ever saw with Daniel Craig was this British crime drama called Layer Cake, which is such an awesome movie. A movie I never hear talked about. That's a movie I should cover at some point. But such a great movie. That was the first Daniel Craig movie I ever saw. I've always been a huge fan. So when I heard the news that he was going to be Bond, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." So yeah, and I thought when I first saw this movie, this was the best James Bond movie, and the best actor ever to play James Bond. And watching this again, I watched this last night, and I feel the same exact way, probably even more enthusiastic. So definitely check this out if you haven't seen it. These are very popular movies. Most people have probably seen them, but I highly recommend the Blu-ray edition. It's pretty jaw-dropping. So I'm very much looking forward to watching Skyfall next. So thanks again. This is Jason Dean, and we will see you next time. Peace.